Okay, a good Erev Shabbos, everyone, as we are sponsored by, and here he is, about to say his name, and here he is. And here he is, Baruchian, as we're sponsored by Baruchian, Lilinish Masesta Bas Yoni, Yaakov Chaim Ben Abba, Abraham Ben Shmuel HaKayin, and Lefu Shalema for Baruch Shalema Ben Lina, by Aaron Swade for his first wife, Chana Bas Shmuel, and his sister, Freda Bas Shaul, by Mark Frankel, Lefu Shalema for Chana Bas Gittel Esther, Miriam Sor Bas Sipor, by Ber Kolwasser, for Akos HaToy, for what Hashem did for his family, and for Choyle Yisrael, for my Shver Avigdai ben Rivka, Meir ben Chayesor, Yudit Cyril Bas Miriam, and Hayeled ben Chava. They should have a refuah shalema b'sei Sharchel Yisrael. We are looking for another sponsor for Masechtas Bava Kama. A.B. Spry is going to be sponsoring Bava Kama. We're looking for a second sponsor for Bava Kama for the start of Seder Nezikin. If anybody's interested, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. We are holding by Daf Ayin Gimel Amid Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. Ayin Gimel Amid Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. Nemon Bal Mekach. Let's say Mel sold a car. Now, Shelley says he bought it, and Rabbi Grant says he bought it. And I have to tell you, if Mel sells a car, it was a nice car. It was a 2023 Lincoln Navigator. It was a really nice car. I saw it. It was really, really a nice car.
I'll take the money from both.
Yeah, I knew he would say that. I know my customers. So anyway, so Rabbi Kran said that he bought it, and Shelley said that he bought it. So Neman Bal Mekach Loimer, Mel is believed to say, Lezeh macharti ulezeh macharti. I sold it to Shelley, I didn't sell it to Rabbi Kranz. However, when is he believed? When he still has the keys to the navigator in his hand. But if the navigator, keys to the navigator is not in his hand, then ain't a neman. Then he's not believed. So the Gemara says, but wait a second. Let's see who he got the money from. Who did he get the money from? Let's look at the money trail. Says the Gemara, Mel is ahead of you. He got the money from both. V'amar, but he says, Chad midatoi, Shelley, it was willing. V'chad bal karchi, and Rabbi Kranz held a gun to my head. So Rabbi Kranz was a chamson. Right, so says the Gemara, V'lo yediyah, we don't know, hey midaitoi v'hei loy midaitoi. We don't know which one it was willingly and which one it wasn't willingly. So as long as Mel still has the keys, he's believed to say that I sold it to Shelley willingly and to Rabbi Kranz against my will. Neman Dayan, here, who looks like a judge over here, sitting there so seriously, Shimon Klein is a judge. So Neman Dayan Leimer, Shimon the judge is believed to say, Lezeh zochisi v'lezeh chayavti. There's over here a din Torah between Avi and Baruch, between Avi Amen to Baruch Ian. So Shimon is believed to say, Lezeh zochisi, I found that Avi was meritorious, and Baruch was guilty. But when is he believed to say this? That the litigants are still standing before him. But if the Bali Dinim are not standing before him, the litigants have left, Einay Neman. He's not believed. So the Gemara says, what do you mean? The secretary of the court wrote a court decision, and it awarded a document of schus, a document of favor to one of them. So v'nichzei schus amanoket, who has the document, the certificate that the case was decided on his behalf, says, well, the document was lost, it got torn, it's not around. So the Gemara says, okay, so what's the big timus? Let Shimon judge the case again. V'neder v'nidainu, let him judge it again. The problem is that certain cases are not cut and dry. Certain cases, we say, are left up to shuda dedaine. They're left up to the discretion of the judge. And it's not always that you'll get the same result the second time. Says Gemara, it's talking about a case, b'shuda dedaine, where it was left up to the discretion of the judge. Now, the third case over here, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvaro. Rav Nachman, Shloisha Nemonim ala Bechar. 3 people are believed to identify which child is the firstborn. Let's say twins were born. 3 people are believed to identify which one is the Bechar. Ve'elohein, Chaya, the midwife, Aviv, the father, Ve'imai, and the mother. However, the duration of their credibility is different. Chaya la'alter. The midwife, as we said, it's only till she leaves the room. Imai, the mother, is believed kol shiva, the first 7 days. Aviv, the father, la'olam, the father is given the credibility to identify the child as a bechar always. Kedetanya, Yakir, it says that he will recognize the firstborn, and we darshan Yakirenu la'acherim, that we allow him to identify this firstborn for others. Mikan Amar Rabbi Yehuda Neman Adam Leimer Zeh B'ni Bechar Ukeshem Sheneman Leimer Zeh B'ni Bechar. Just like he's trusted to say, "This is my son, the firstborn." Kach Neman Leimer Zeh Ben Grusha V'Zeh Ben Chalutza. He's also believed to say that he's a chalal. In the case where the father was a kohen, he says, "I want to tell you I married a divorcee, so this child is a chalal, or V'Zeh Ben Chalutza, I married a chalutza." He's only believed to identify him as a firstborn. He's not believed to his detriment to say that he's pasul l'kahuna. Now, the Mishnah continues. The Mishnah continues. Abishal hayakayrei l'shtuki beduki. Abishal would call the shtuki. The shtuki, remember, is the one that we know the mother, we don't know the father. And when he says, Tati, she's mishaskin, I say, he would call him beduki. Beduki literally means needs an investigation. So my beduki, what does that mean? Where we grill the mother, and if she says that I had relations with a kosher nemenes, so shtuki means that the child is not aser, but rather we investigate, and if the mother says I had relations with a kosher, the child is kosher. Says, well, that's not a new opinion. That is an opinion that we already learned in Masechtas Ksuvos. That's the opinion of Rabbi Gamliel. Kaman, Rabbi Gamliel. So the Gemara says, Tanina Chada Zimna. We already learned Rabbi Gamliel's opinion once before. Ditran, Hoysam Uberis. Here is a woman who's pregnant. There's no father in sight. So v'amrullah, so we say to her, "Mat tiva shel uber zeh." What's the nature of this child? Amr lahem, so she said to them, "Ish pliny," it's from so and so. V'kayenu. Now, when she says kayin, it doesn't mean literally a kayin, but it means somebody who is roy to marry into the kuna. In other words, it was from a man who is a miyuchas. Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Eliezer, Aimim Nemanis. Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Eliezer says she's believed. Rabbi Yeshua, Aimim Loi Mepia Anu Chayin. We don't trust her. Vam Rabbi Yehuda Mishmal Allah Rabbi Gamliel. So, if we're saying where we don't know who the father is, and we investigate and we believe her, then that's not a new opinion. That's an opinion already in Masechtas Ksuvos. It's the opinion of Rabbi Gamliel. Says, no, there's a Chiddush. Because Rabbi Gamliel just means we believe her to the extent that she doesn't become disqualified. That she didn't marry someone who would disqualify her. She didn't sleep with a mamzer, a nasan. What our Mishnah is saying is not only is she believed about herself, but she's also believed about the child. As the Gemara says, Chodo lahachshir ba. One is to say that she's okay, that she's not disqualified from kahuna because she didn't sleep with somebody that made her a zayna. And now our Mishnah is saying that the shtuki is a beduki, that as regard to the child, we also believe her regarding the child. So the Gemara says, okay, that's good. That if you hold when Rabbi Gamliel says that in Ksuvos, that it's kosher, it just meant her, but the child is possible, that's what our Mishnah comes to add. What's the Chiddush of Abishol over the Mishnah in Ksuvos? Says the Gemara, the Abishol adifa min Rabbi Gamliel. De'im mehasam. In the case in Ksuvos, when we see that the woman is pregnant and we ask her, Mativa shel uberzeh, what's the nature of this child? Hava mina hasam derive kisherin etzla, where it's a situation where she's an unmarried girl. So the majority of people are permitted to her. Or she's living in a town full of kosher Yisraelim. So the majority of people are permitted to her. Aval heicha derive psulin etzla, where she's an engaged girl. So the only person that's kosher to her is her oros. Or if it's a city where the majority of the people are mamzerim and nesinim and goyim, emaloi, I might think she's not believed. Tzricha. Even so, Abba Shol says, Beduki, investigate, and you can believe her. And the Gemara answers with a flourish. The Gemara concludes, Amarava halacha k'Abba Shol, that you could ask her the nature of the child, and she's believed to say the nature of the child, even in a place where the majority of the people are usher to her. Okay, good evening, everyone. I wonder if Marshall is still cooking. Busy with all his drumettes and everything. And Elliot Udell, Dr. Udell, we welcome you. Did I welcome everybody tonight?
No.
No, I didn't. So welcoming Mel Zachter and Shimon Klein, A.B. Spry, Israel Fisher, Dr. Guy. We welcome in Shelley Zeitlin and Irving Fishbaum, Michal, Ben Zion Cohen, Dr. Block, Avi Amen, Baruchian, Rabbi Kranz, Mordechai Sultan, Ruvain Pollack, Itchy Weintraub, Richard Rosenzweig, Moshe Lehman, Eddie Chazan, Naftali Jablin, Berish Gesserman, Abe Arbach, Ilya Shutman, Pesach Singelman, Yehuda from Yerushalayim, Elliot Udell, here, David Helfgott. Here on Shul we have Reb Kramer, Reb Schenkman, and Saba holding the fort as we continue with the new Mishnah. Cholo asurin lavoi b'kahal. Anybody that's ushered to enter into the congregation, mutarin lavoi zeh b'zeh, is permitted to marry one another. So that would mean that a mamzer is allowed to marry a nasan. According to our Mishnah, a Shtuki and a Sufi, which are not allowed to marry into Yisrael, they would be allowed to marry a Mamzer, because we said a Suffolk could marry a Vadai, because they're only us to, only a Mamzer Vadai is not allowed to, you're only not allowed to marry Lo Yava Mamzer B'Kal Vadai. If it's a Kal Suffolk, like a Shtuki and a Sufi, it could marry. Different Rabbi Yehuda Oiser. Rabbi Yehuda prohibits it. Now we're going to see that Rabbi Eliezer says, Rabbi Eliezer, I'm a Vavdoyim, B'Vavdoyim Mutter. A Mamzer can marry another Mamzer. A Mamzer can marry a Nasan. Vavdoyim B'Sveiken, but a Mamzer can't marry a Shtuki or a Sufi, because we don't know, maybe the Shtuki is kosher, maybe the Sufi is kosher. Usveiken B'Vavdoyim, or a Shtuki to marry a Mamzer, or a Sveiken B'Sveiken, a Shtuki to marry another Shtuki, because maybe one Shtuki is kosher and one Shtuki is not, also. Ve'elu heina Sveikis, what are situations of doubt? Shtuki, Asufi, a Shtuki where we don't know who the father is, and Asufi is a foundling where we don't know who the father and mother is, and a Kusi, because the Kusim that were Megayer, when Sancherev Melech Ashur moved the 10 tribes out, he moved into the Shamram, people from Kusa, and they were Megayer, Mipachad Aroyas. They were attacked by lions, they were Megayer, but they certain things that they're not careful with, and therefore some of them might not have married correctly. So therefore the Kusi is also a suffix. Now, we're going to have to see what's the difference between Rabbi Yehuda, who is Iser, and Rabbi Eliezer, that asers a suffix with a vadai and a suffix with a suffix. What more does Rabbi Yehuda aser? So the Gemara is going to have to identify. Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is not clarified. So first thing Gemara says, in the first Mishnah in the Perek of Asari Yuchsin Olo Ezra Bavo, it already says that Mamzere and Nisine are allowed to marry with a Shtuki and an Asufi. So it already says Mutar and Lavei Zebazeh. So what's the Chiddush of that statement? My kol asurin Lavei Bekol, Ilema Mamzere and Nisine, Shtuki and Asufi are all allowed to marry one another. It already says that in the Reisha. Mamzeri Nesine Shtuki Vasufi Mutar and Lavei Zebazeh. V'su Rabbi Yehuda Iser. It says Rabbi Yehuda asks, what's Rabbi Yehuda coming to add? Ilay ma'avadoyin b'sveikin, that a mamzer vada can't marry a Shtuki, but that's already Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. Ha'maniktani say for Rabbi Eliezer, I'm a vavadoyin b'vadoyin mutter. Vadoyim misveikin or sveikin misveikin is aser. Michlal de Rabbi Yehuda lo yisraelei. That means Rabbi Yehuda has a different opinion. So what is Rabbi Yehuda's opinion? V'chi teima Rabbi Yehuda oiser ager b'mamzeres. He's coming to add that a ger is not allowed to be with a mamzeres because he holds that kahal gerim ikrei kahal, and therefore a ger is not allowed to marry a mamzeres. Midei ger mamzeres katani. It doesn't say that in the Mishnah. He says kol asur and lavei b'kol katani. It says whoever is forbidden to marry into the kol, and that's not a ger. A ger is not forbidden to marry a regular Yisraelis. A ger is allowed to marry a regular Yisraelis. So says the Gemara, we're going to explain to you what the opinion here of Rabbi Yehuda is. Don't get mixed up between Rav Yehuda and Rebbe Yehuda. Rav Yehuda is giving an explanation about Rebbe Yehuda. Amar Rav Yehuda, and here we already turned the page. Spaghetti-o. I didn't put on the digital recorder. Okay. See, I don't have Irving at my hand. Right? When I had Irving at my hand, Irving would never have allowed that to happen. Right, Irving? You would have never allowed that to happen. That's because I'm a little bit winded. I came driving 2 hours from Flatbush and ran right into the shir. Amar Rav Yehuda, Hachi Kamer, Kol Asurim Lavai B'Kahal Kahuna, all those that are prohibited to marry into the Kahal Kahuna. Now here we're going to have a very huge chiddush, and that is that even a convert that converted before they were 3 years old. Now if they converted before they're 3 years old, we don't have to worry that they committed a forbidden bia. You know, the goyim are licentious. But before 3 years old, a girl is not a bar bia. But hachi kamer, kol asurim lavai bekal kahuna, and my ninu, who does this include? Even a giyaris pchusa meba shalosh shanim v'yom echad, even a giyaris that is less than 3 years old. See, what we're doing over here is we're going to be saying that when Reb Yehuda asks, he means a ger b'mamzeres, because he holds kal gerim mikre kol, and he can't marry a mamzeres. But we said if it's talking about a ger, but a ger is not also lavai b'kol, it doesn't mean that it means kol asurim lavai b'kal kahuna. And he holds that even a giyaris less than 3 years old is not allowed to marry a kohen. Udaloika Reb Shimon bar Yochai, not like the opinion of Reb Shimon bar Yochai, who holds that a giyaris that's less than 3 years old is kosher to kahuna. And therefore that's what it means. Kol asurim lavai b'kal kahuna, meaning a ger, umay niu demarbe. Well, what is that coming to include? That's coming to include a ger is also lavai b'mamzeres. He's not allowed to be with a mamzeres. Now, why would a kohen be also with a giyaris that's less than 3 years old? The whole reason to say that he's also with a giyaris is because while she was a goya, she had forbidden relationships and she has a din of a zayna. But if she was megaya before she was 3 years old, then she couldn't have had any forbidden relationship because there's no bia less than 3 years old. So Rashi tells us it's for a different reason. It darshans the pasuk ki im besulais mezera beis Yisrael. Now this is actually a pasuk not in the Torah. It's a pasuk in Yecheskel. You have to learn. It's a gilui milsa ba'alma that it says about kohanim ki im besulais mezera beis Yisrael. They can only marry virgins from zera beis Yisrael and not from goyim, even if they converted less than 3 years old. Says the Gemara, but why do you have to say it's talking about less than 3 years old? V'nukba b'bas shalosh shanim v'yom echad. Say it's talking about where she's 3 years old. V'afilu Reb Shimon bar Yochai, and the reason why she's forbidden to marry into the kahuna is because there's a chash znus, that she was a zaynab, she had a forbidden relation. Says the Gemara, that won't work because im kein mitzida tavra elataima the bashal shon v'yom echad. The reason why she's permitted lava b'kol is only because she is. I'm sorry. The reason why she's also to be with the mamzeres is because she's also lavai b'kahuna mashma. But if she's mutter to if she's mutter to the kahuna, so then she would be permitted with a mamzeres, but that's not true because he holds that kahal geirim mikre kol and none of them are permitted with a mamzeres. As the Gemara says, "Elatayim the bashal sham yamechad, hapchusim bashal sham yamechad," that she's mutter, lava bekal kahuna, asur lava zebezeh. She would be forbidden to marry a mamzeres, but she wouldn't be. Haripchusim bashal sham yamechad leb shimon yachai. The muteris lava bekal kahuna. She's mutter to come into the kalkuna, but since kal gerim lo yikre kal, umutaris lavik zebezeh, she would be mutter to marry a mamzer because kal gerim is lo yikre kal. So says the Gemara, uklalahu, is that a principle? The kol asurim lavei bekal kahuna, that those that are usher to marry into the kal kahuna are mutar and lavei zebazeh, are allowed to marry a mamzer? That's not true. Vari almana grusha v'chalala v'zayna, an almana grusha chalala and a zayna that are usher to marry into kahuna, the asurim lavei bekal kahuna, and they're not allowed to marry a mamzer. They're not allowed to marry a mamzer. They're not allowed to marry a nosen. And furthermore, hamutter, if they're allowed to marry into kahuna aser, they're forbidden to marry a mamzer. Varager shemutter bekehenes, a ger is mutter to marry a kehenes, so she's mutter to marry into the kahuna. Or mutter be mamzeres because kal gerim lo yikre kal. Elam Rav Chanan bar Hoshia nu pshat and Reb Yehuda Hachi Kama Kol shekayin aser lisa es bitai. Anybody that a kayin is forbidden to marry his daughter, umay nihu, and what does that mean? Anybody that's the kayin is forbidden to marry his daughter. And what is that? A ger shenasa giyaris. That if a ger married a giyaris, a kayin is forbidden to marry their daughter. Or Rebbe Eliezer ben Yaakov, like the opinion of Rebbe Eliezer ben Yaakov, that a ger that marries a giyaris is the child is forbidden to marry a kayin, but that child is permitted to marry a mamzer, is permitted to marry a nasan. Mutar and lava yizeh, the child of a ger and a giyaris will be permitted to marry a mamzer because kal gerim lo yikre kal. Says the Gemara, uklalu, is that a klal? The kol shekayin aser lisa is bitai, that if a kayin is forbidden to marry their daughter, mutar and lava yizeh, that's not true. Hari chalul shenasa bas Yisrael, a chalul married a bas Yisrael. So in that case, the child is going to be a chalul, and it's forbidden to marry kayin, and of course the chalul is not allowed to marry a mamzer. Says the Gemara, "Klalu, the kol shekayin asa lisa is bitai," that wherever a kayin is not allowed to marry his daughter, mutar and lava yizeh, the father is allowed to marry a mamzer. Hari chalul shenasa bas Yisrael, a chalul that married bas Yisrael, the child is a chalul, and it's forbidden to a kayin, but the father is not allowed to marry a mamzer. The kayin asa lisa is bitai, vasur nami lava yizeh, the father, a chalul, is certainly not allowed to marry a mamzer or a nasan. Says the Gemara, no. That's not a case. Because this we already explained. There's a mandiyama that a chalul that marries a Yisraelis, the child is kosher. Because we say that the mother is a mikvah that's matar. Like Kashkrib, there's Rabbi Yehuda who holds that B'nai Yisrael are mikveh tara, and when a chalal marries a Yisraelis, the child is kosher. Yeah, but what about vari chalal shenas a chalala? If a chalal marries a chalala, that child is definitely forbidden to kahuna, and the chalal is not allowed to marry a mamzer. Says Gemara, vari chalal shenas a chalala v'koyin asa lisa bitay, but v'asa namin love is ebezed. A chalal can't marry a mamzer or a nasan. V'su, and furthermore, the other implication is also not true. Ha mutter, if the child is allowed to marry into kahuna, then the father can't marry a mamzer. Havari gerushin asa bas Yisrael, a ger that marries a bas Yisrael, where the mother was a regular Yisraelis. The kohen mutalisa bitay. The kohen is allowed to marry the daughter, and yet a mamzer is allowed to marry the father, because the father is a ger, and kal gerim lo yikrei kal umutar and loving zebezeh. So we're grappling over here. So what is pshat in this Rabbi Yehuda Eiser? And remember, it can't just mean that when it says Rabbi Yehuda Eiser, it means suffik bevadai and suffik b'suffik, because that was already Rebbe Loz's opinion in the Mishnah. Ella, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba Bar Avua, Hocha mamzer me'achoyso, yo mamzer me'eshes ish ike beinayu. The question is, what makes a mamzer? Does only Isser Karis make him? Does only Isser Misas Bezdin, a capital crime, make a mamzer? That would be like adultery. Or does even an Isser Karis, like an incestuous relationship with a sister, make a mamzer? Amar Rabba Bar Avua, Hacham mamzer me'achoyso, yo mamzer me'eshes ish ike beinayu. No, as one holds that they're allowed to marry one with another, whether they came about through a forbidden relationship of an Issacharius, like a sister, or a forbidden relationship of a capital offense, like with a daughter, or with adultery. And the other says they're not allowed to, because a sister doesn't produce a mamzer. It's only an Isser Misas Bezdin that produces a mamzer. Says the Gemara, as the Gemara explains, Tanakama savar afilu mamzer me'achoyso nami avi mamzer. Even a mamzer from a sister is also a mamzer. So any type of forbidden relation could marry one with another, whether it's an Issacharius, whether it's an Isser Misas Bezdin. Rabbi Yehuda savar only me'ishes ish avi mamzer, because it's a capital offense, a death sentence. Me'achoyso lo avi mamzer. Says, well, that's an old argument. This is not a Kiddush. We wouldn't need our Mishnah, an opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. That's an old argument. My Kamash Malon, Tanina, we already learned this. This is a Mishnah of Fereshis in Yavamis. Eizo Mamzer. So we have a three-way machlokes, what produces a Mamzer. Of course, we have the most stringent opinion. Rabbi Kiva holds any Isser Lav produces a Mamzer. Says the Gemara, Tanina Eizo Mamzer, Koshu below Yavoy. Any Isser Lav produces a Mamzer. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. Shimon Atim Niyomer, Kol Shechayav and Love Chorus B'nei Shemayim. Anything that there's at least a punishable chorus, sleeping with a sister. V'alacha Kidvarav. Rabbi Yeshua Aimer, no, only if it's a death sentence. Kol Shechayav and Love Misas Bezdin, like sleeping with a mother-in-law, sleeping with a daughter, or sleeping with a wife, a woman other than somebody else's wife, adultery. So that can't be the machlokes, because that's old hat. That's already a Mishnah of Fereshis in Yavamas. Ela Amar Rava, it's a different machlokes. What's the machlokes? Ger amoini umay avi ikebeinayu. If you have a Ammonite convert or a Moabite convert. Now remember, an Ammoni and a Moavi of the male gender is forbidden forever. V'achi kama, kol asurim lavoi b'kol, all those that are usher to enter into the kol, umay niyu ger amoini moavi, because a ger amoini moavi is not allowed to marry into the kol. Mutarin lavoi zebezeh, is allowed to marry a mamzer. Says the Gemara, then what does it mean? If Rabbi Yehuda says it's permitted, what do you mean Rabbi Yehuda asks? Ihachi my Rabbi Yehuda aiser. He's saying now that it's permitted. Says the Gemara, hachi kamer. Afal pisha Rabbi Yehuda aiser ger b'mamzeres, because he holds kal ger and mikre kal. But that's only a regular ger. That's allowed to marry into Yisrael. But a ger amoini that's not allowed to marry into Yisrael, that he holds is allowed to marry a mamzeres. Hani mili ger deroi lavei b'kol. Aval ger amoini moavi de ein roi lavei b'kol, that's not allowed to marry in, because a male ger amoini, a ger moavi is not allowed to marry into kol, loi. So here, this is a very big chiddush. Let's clarify this chiddush. The Gemara is saying when it says Rabbi Yehuda Eiser over here, it doesn't mean that Rabbi Yehuda asks. It means that Rabbi Yehuda says that kol hoasurim lavoi b'kol, whoever is usher to marry into Klal Yisrael, namely a ger amoini umayavi, mutar and lavoi zebezeh, is allowed to marry a mamzer. What does it mean, Rabbi Yehuda Eiser? What it means by Rabbi Yehuda is Eiser is even though Rabbi Yehuda asks normally a ger to marry a mamzeres, because kal ger mikre kol, that's only a ger that's allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael. But a ger that's not allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael, namely a ger amoini or moavi, he is allowed to marry a mamzeres, he's not allowed to marry a nesina. Okay, we'll stop over here, Rabbi say, and now, don't disappear, don't go anywhere, don't pass go, don't collect $200. You could collect $200 if you want, but
Shabbos?
What's your Shabbos is 8:45, 8:45, getting earlier. I know that's something that Irving likes to hear. 8:45 for Motzei Shabbos. And now we're going to continue our travels through Yavamis. Let's put this.
Enjoy Shabbos.